Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Community Action Advisory Board for Clark County. Just for the record, this meeting is being recorded. When we have discussion, please identify yourself when you're talking so we can capture accurate minutes. And just as a note, the chat function is not available during this meeting due to public disclosure rules and for the fact that if people are joining us by phone, they don't have equal access to view the chat. So we'll just make sure that we're not using that as a way to communicate during the meeting. And also just to let you know that this is my last meeting as chair. So it's been a pleasure. I'm excited about our agenda and electing a new chair for our board. And we have a huge agenda today. This is our first business meeting of the year, and it's also going to be our annual training. So with that, we'll go ahead and start with welcome and introductions. So again, I'm Alicia Topper. I'm serving as an elected official on this board. We'll go ahead and have Rebecca call folks and we'll just do brief introductions.
Good morning, Diana Perez.
Here. Good morning, everyone.
Jamie Spinelli.
I'm here. Did you say we're supposed to introduce ourselves?
Yes, please. You have done it.
I'm Jamie Spinelli, and I am a low-income rep for District 1. I'm getting a lot of feedback.
Joyce Cooper.
Thank you, Joyce. You want to introduce yourself?
Are you logged in, David, to the meeting? Are you logged into the meeting?
I'm Joyce. Do you want to introduce yourself, Joyce?
Yeah, I'm on the meeting.
And what district are you serving?
Okay, I think it's 5 North Clark County.
Thank you. No. Go ahead, Rob.
I'm Rob Perkins, serving as elected official from District 3. Sorry, the feedback is strict.
Yeah, we're not sure. We're trying to figure out if someone else is logged in this room. I'm not hearing feedback now. Do you hear any feedback?
Talk, Rob.
Testing 1, 2.
Okay, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Please make sure to stay muted unless you are actively speaking, and hopefully that will fix the problem.
Go ahead, Karen.
Karen Cameron, low income community representative for District 2.
Thanks, Karen. Lance?
Good morning, Lance Carter, community member.
Thank you, Lance. Good morning, Megan.
Good morning. My name is Megan Malsoff. I'm the low income representative of District 4.
Thank you. Melanie. So Melanie looks like she might be on a call, but we'll go ahead and have her introduce herself when she's back. And then we have Janet Snook.
I'm Janet from Clark County.
Thanks, Janet. And of course, Rebecca.
Good morning. This is Rebecca, staff to the board.
Okay, did I miss anyone?
Yep.
Of course, in the room. Hi, go ahead.
Amy Rourke, community representative for District 1.
Thanks, Amy. And David?
Hi, I'm David Polar. I'm the deaf community representative.
Okay, now I've caught everyone. I was so focused on virtual.
Melanie is back.
And Melanie is back. Go ahead, Melanie.
Hi, sorry about that. My name is Melanie Green, and I am the community representative for District 4.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And now the introductions are done and we are ahead of schedule. So thank you all for those concise intros. I will go ahead and move on to our election of executive officers. So I'll have Rebecca go ahead and give an overview of the process and where we are today.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for working with us on the technical of this situations that we're doing. Okay, so the executive office is the chair, vice chair, and secretary positions. The executive team reviews the agendas, helps set those agendas. The chair oversees the meetings. The secretary signs off on the meetings once the board has approved them, and the vice chair steps in as needed. The executive team also helps when we have open positions for doing the board selection for new positions, as long as they're not one of the positions that are actually up for reappointment. Each position person can hold those positions for up to 3 years, re-elected to that position each year. And then they need to either step down from the executive office position, or they can change to a different position. Our current executive team is Treasurer Alicia Topper, has been our chair for the last 3 years. Greatly appreciate the work that she's done. Our vice chair this last year is Amy Vork. It was her first year as vice chair. And then Bridget McClellan was the secretary, and she has served 3 years in that position. We've been asking for nominations from the November meeting through emails, reminders, and at this time we have 2 people nominated for positions. The chair, Melanie Green, is nominated for chair. Alicia Topper is nominated for vice chair, and we have not received any nominations for the secretary position. So we will ask for nominations from the floor. You can self-nominate, or you can nominate another person. The only person not eligible for the secretary position is Bridget, because she's already served 3 years.
Any questions for Rebecca? Hearing none, so we do have a request to see if there are nominations from the floor for the position of secretary. Are there any self-nominations? Anyone interested in serving on the executive team?
I promise it's a pretty easy position, and most communication is done via email.
My issue is that the time that we have our meetings in the past used to be 8 o'clock in the morning, and that was easier for me because of my workplace. I have to open the office. So because we changed the time of the meeting to 9, I really can't serve again.
Okay,
Appreciate that, David.
yeah.
Rebecca, can you
Yes.
estimate the time commitment for secretary?
So it's pretty much the same as every other board member, except for you'll receive an email to review the agenda and provide feedback on the agenda. Sometimes there's higher action items that might need to take place with, be in between board meetings. But again, that's almost always through an email. So, and I try to give, several days notice for response whenever possible. So attending the meetings, and then if we have an open position, which right now we're filling several positions, then there would be that time commitment of reviewing board applications and possible interviews for those positions.
Okay, well, I'll volunteer for the position. I guess that's a self-nomination since I'm already doing the other things with you.
So we have a nomination from the floor. Rob Perkins has put his name forward for secretary. Are there any other nominations?
May I add that the secretary also signs the minutes, and they do that via DocuSign.
Sounds fine.
Thank you, Janet.
Okay, so are there any other nominations from the floor? Last call, are there any other nominations? Hearing none, the nomination opening is closed, and now we have our slate of executive members. As chair to be voted on is Melanie Green, vice chair Alicia Topper, secretary Rob Perkins. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and do a voice call for a vote, but I think what I would like to do is to have a motion to make it a formal action item.
Amy, I move to approve all the nominations.
I second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the slate of executive members. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Okay, it sounds like it was a unanimous vote. Thank you, everybody. Okay, and with that, I will yield the chair position to our newly elected chair, Melanie Green.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Hello, everyone. All right. Well, what is next?
So I'll go ahead and share a parliamentary procedures overview. As chair, we have the opportunity to review a report that Rebecca puts together for the Department of Commerce. And in that report, it states all of the things that they have done in compliance with community action agencies. And I noticed that there was a section on training for board members on parliamentary procedures. And so we felt that we needed to do something more formal during our training to address that topic. So I scoured YouTube and found the most concise and shortest training video that I could, and it happens to be a Iowa Farmers Association, a corn association. So if you can look past the corn references and just take out some of the key points about parliamentary procedures and Robert's Rules of Order, I think we'll just get some basics under our belt. And it's really just going to touch on how to make a motion, how to amend a motion, and really what parliamentary procedures and Robert's Rules of Order is used for. So with that, I'll go ahead and share my video, and the audio might be a little faint, but I'm hoping that you guys can hear it okay. And there will be a mid-video advertisement that I'm going to have to wait 5 seconds before I can skip, just because I don't have a paid version of YouTube. So with that, please enjoy.
Unproductive meetings that don't get results. Likely
You're not seeing it on
Oh,
WebEx.
they're not.
might have found yourself repeating.
A share.
I think I have to share my screen, so just 1 sec. Okay.
People don't hate meetings. They hate unproductive meetings that don't get results. You've likely led or attended meetings that were unproductive. You might have found yourself repeating past discussion items, failing to stay focused on your agenda, struggling with decision making, and maybe lacking clarity on post-meeting action items. Your time and the time of all our volunteer leaders is precious. The Iowa Corn Growers Association and Iowa Corn Promotion Board would like to help you lead and participate in meetings that are more effective and efficient, utilizing parliamentary procedure. You've likely heard the term before or utilized it in other meetings. Here's a quick refresher, as we want to help you gain confidence in your meeting management skills through a better understanding of parliamentary procedures. Parliamentary procedure is a set of rules for conduct at meetings that allows everyone to be heard and to make decisions without confusion. You may have also heard of Robert's Rules of Order, which is a user-friendly adaptation of parliamentary procedure that we'll be referencing. Following a few basics of parliamentary procedure will allow you to conduct meetings efficiently and reduce common frustrations that result from a poorly run meeting. You'll spend your time on the right issues, as well as assure the minority is heard and the majority wins. How much parliamentary procedure do you need? The answer is, it depends. It depends on the meeting and it depends on the setting. Does the way you conduct meetings hinder rather than facilitate business? Do meetings lack orderly procedures? Does discussion drag on without decisions being made? If your answer to any of these questions is yes, then you will benefit from a review of the basics of parliamentary procedure. Primary skill sets to master are motion procedures and amendment procedures. These are the two most common skills used in Iowa Corn meetings. What is a motion? A motion is a formal proposal by a member in a meeting that the group takes specific action. This person is generally referred to as the mover. The 4 basic steps to a motion include the motion is made, it is seconded, it is discussed, and then the motion is voted upon. It is helpful if the motion is well worded and succinct. Listen to this example. I make a motion to purchase another Iowa corn trailer. Even though the topic may be worthy of discussion, you can already tell the motion itself is going to cause meeting confusion and waste everyone's precious time. You simply don't have enough information. The motion isn't clear. Think of a motion as your ask. It should state clearly what you want to accomplish. Put it through this filter. Can someone who wasn't at the meeting understand your intent and your desired outcome by reading the motion? For example, if the motion is passed in an Iowa Corn committee, the motion is included in the committee minutes and part of the board packet. The committee chair reports the committee minutes to the board for board adoption. Once adopted, it goes into the action motion report. And board members understand your intent and desired outcome by reading your motion. Make sure you include details such as the what, the who, the when, how much money is being requested and from what budget or account. Think ahead to potential questions and objections. The better worded the motion is when presented, the clearer your intent, and the less likely your motion will be subjected to amendments which may dilute your original intent. The motion should begin like this. I move to. We don't say I make a motion. And again, think through clearly what you want to accomplish. If possible, craft the language of the motion in advance. Ask for feedback from peers to assure it is specific yet concise. Let's try that earlier example again. I move to allocate up to $30,000 to update the interior of Iowa Corn Mobile Educational Trailer. Funds will come out of the Iowa Corn Mobile Education Center line item for fiscal year 21-22. A motion must be seconded by someone other than the mover before discussion. A second is not necessarily an endorsement of the motion, but ensures that at least one other person thinks the motion should be discussed. The purpose of requiring a second is to prevent time being wasted by having to discuss and deal with a motion that only one person wants to see introduced. You can simply say, I second the motion. I move to second. Second. If no second is immediately heard, the chair asks, is there a second to the motion? Without a second, the motion is lost and simply does not come before the vote. If this happens, the chair states that as the case and moves on to the next item of business. If a second to the motion is received, the chair says, it is moved and seconded that, and then reads the motion. It is now time to discuss the motion. For Iowa Corn meetings, assure you are speaking clearly and you can be heard across the meeting space. Smaller meetings will often run less formally and with a free flow of discussion. In more formal meetings, adhering more strictly to parliamentary procedure, the chair will initially recognize the mover to speak on behalf of the motion, including the reason behind it. Others request to be recognized by the chair and receive permission before speaking for or against the motion. Regardless of formality, be concise with your comments and be cautious of simply saying the same thing someone has already said, but in a different way. This habit is a key offender in bogging down discussion and causing frustration amongst the group. Discussion is the time to seek and hear contrary opinion. Respectful debate is desired. However, if it seems like debate is going in circles and nothing new is being brought to the table, you can move to call the question after being recognized by the chair, which stops debate. This call must have a second. Then the chair takes an immediate vote. It takes 2/3 of the voting members in favor to cut off debate. Therefore, it's preferred the chair take the vote by show of hands and not by voice. If this motion is passed, the chair will immediately call for a vote on the motion. If the motion fails, debate and discussion continue. The chair will likely ask, are you ready to vote on the motion? As discussion winds down. Once it is determined the group is prepared to vote, the chair will restate the motion for clarity and then state the method of voting that will be used. Commonly, this vote is by voice, raised hand, or electronic device. The chair will first call for those in favor. Then they will pause for affirmative responses. Next, the chair calls for those against. Again, they pause for the response. Finally, the chair announces results. Majority always wins on main motions unless otherwise stated ahead of time in your bylaws or when basic rights of members are involved. A 2/3 vote is required for any motion that deprives a member of rights in any way, such as when debate is cut off, as we mentioned earlier. The chair or any member may call for a vote recount by standing or raising of hands. This is known as call for division and is used if the count is unclear or in question. The request is not debatable, does not require a vote, and is the right of all members. The vote on the motion is again called by the chair, who announces if the vote passes or fails. As a quick look back, the 4 basic steps of a motion include making the motion, getting a second, which allows discussion, and then voting on the motion. Knowledge check. A motion requires A, less detail so discussion creates the final language, B, a second, C, detail like the who, what, and when to inform the intent of the motion, D, all of the above, E, both B and C. The correct answer is E. A motion requires a second, and detail creates clarity, allowing someone to make the second and for the group to begin active discussion on the motion as you intended it. True or false? It is appropriate to shout question if you think debate has gone on too long. False. You must be recognized by the chair before you call the question. Then it needs a second and a 2/3 vote to close discussion on the motion. There are times that a poorly worded original motion or a dynamic discussion of the motion leads to a need or a desire to modify the motion before voting. This is known as an amendment. An amendment must be relevant to the motion it seeks to amend. The 3 basic processes of amendments are to move to insert a word or paragraph, to move to strike a word or paragraph, or move to insert and strike words or paragraphs. The language of an amendment follows this structure. I move to amend motion A by inserting, striking out, and inserting as follows. An amendment to a motion also requires a second and can be discussed before a vote is called. To pass, the amendment must carry a majority vote. If it fails, the original motion stands as is. If it passes, the amended motion replaces the original motion. This new motion still needs to be voted on by the whole group. One of the most common mistakes in meetings is forgetting to vote on the main motion after the amendment passes. Less formal meetings may utilize the friendly amendment technique. A motion may be amended as a friendly amendment if both the mover and second of the main motion agree to the amended language. If they do not, the amended motion is voted on and then the board returns to the main motion. This usually occurs when group discussion leads to a consensus for a slight change to the original motion, with the maker agreeing. This technique does not follow Robert's Rules of Order and should be avoided at more formal or high-stakes meetings. Knowledge check. True or false? An amendment to a motion requires a vote. True. True or false? Once an amendment to a motion is passed, a vote is no longer needed on the motion itself. False. This is a commonly missed vote. Your 2 most important parliamentary procedure skill sets are making a motion and amending a motion. You can learn as you go with the remainder.
Okay, so that is the basics of a motion and an amendment and a basic overview of parliamentary procedures. Any questions? And there is a really good cheat sheet handbook that if anyone on the board is interested, they can purchase online or rent from the library. And it gives you a basic overview of all the other basic actions for parliamentary procedures. But for this board, I think that the amendment and motion process are probably the 2 most relevant. And I hope that you found that somewhat helpful. And with that, I think I will yield the time back to board business, which is the next action item. So Melanie, do you have a copy of the agenda?
Yes, I do, and I'm ready now. Sorry for
No, that's
being
okay. I
caught
figured
off
I do.
I was like panicked in the moment. So it looks like our next is to approve November 2022 minutes. Do we have a motion
This,
to approve?
this is Alicia. I move to approve.
This is Amy, I second it.
This is David. I just see one slight error. It's just a typo. But it was at the end of page 1, which is CNA task force update. At the last part of the sentence, it says Amy Rourke and Melon Green are current board members on the task force and will provide future updates. So we don't want to say swill. We'll say will. That's the only thing I found out.
All right, thank you for that. Anyone else have anything to discuss about the minutes before approving those? All right, so we'll make the one notation for the correction. And with that, all those in favor of approving the board minutes, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. All right, minutes have been approved. And so the next, we're going to turn the floor over to Rebecca for some board business.
Great. Thank you so much, Melanie. So this is our annual update in board business. And so we just want to make sure that everybody knows where they can access some of the very pertinent information for the board. The first being the CAAB bylaws. The CAAB bylaws were updated and approved in July of 2022. That update was to expand the board with the change of the county council districts. And so there wasn't any other major changes to the bylaws at that time. The bylaws were provided in your email packet for the meeting. For those in person, you also have a copy of the bylaws. And then we always make sure they're available on the Clark County website with the link being provided on the slide, but under our community services and our CAAB member resources. So you can always get to those bylaws if needed. And you can always request a copy from me and I can email them to you at any time. Other board business that we have is the annual signing of the conflict of interest policy. Janet sent that to all of the board members on Friday. I believe we've received most back from board members, but there are a couple of missing. So Janet will be sending out a reminder to make sure that those get signed. The conflict of interest policy is just stating that if you have a conflict, we would need to mitigate that for any future board business, and just making sure that that's aware, that all board members are aware of what constitutes a conflict and then designates if they have one. Also sent out through DocuSign is the annual review of the board member responsibilities. This is just a general overview of the board makeup, how the board works, and the responsibilities of each of the board members. That was also sent. Again, we received most of them signed back, and Janet will send a reminder for those that have not recently signed that. Those are things that we do every year to make sure that we are meeting the standards for the organizational standards, a requirement for all community action agencies. And then the final component is the board member roster. It has been updated on our website to show who our current board members are. We are still in process of appointing new board members. We're going through the application process, but I will make sure that you all get a copy of the new roster as it stands. And then when we have the rest of the positions filled out, I'll make sure to update that online and then also send you a new board roster there. So we will, when we're fully staffed or have all our volunteers for the board, we will have a total of 16 board members. So a good sized board for conducting business around community action, anti-poverty work, and our homeless crisis response system.
All right, thank you for all the information. So it looks like next is adopting the 2022 work plan. That was provided to us in the meeting reminder. And it looks like, Rebecca, do you want to talk about this or do you want me to?
No, I can talk about it. That's
Okay,
fine.
thank you.
Yeah, so every year the board adopts a work plan, which is just kind of a roadmap to what we're going to be doing at each of our meetings for the year. It also includes focus areas of what we're going to be doing. The draft work plan was sent out in your meeting packet. Our ongoing efforts are things that are outlined in our bylaws and we definitely talk about during orientation. Just really talking about encouraging board engagement and advocacy, and utilizing the planning and different documents that are provided throughout the department and the community to help us understand the causes and conditions of poverty here in Clark County. But we also try to use a focus every year. And this year, I've proposed that our focus continue to be increasing board-driven advocacy efforts as we expand from looking closely at Washington, local and Washington state advocacy efforts to also federal efforts, as the Community Action Advisory Board is a federally funded designated body. So we want to make sure that we still increase those advocacy efforts, and then also increase the knowledge of funded programs and their outcomes. And last year, we did the selection of new programs for the next 3 years. Those programs started July 1. So I really wanted to bring in the programs. We've done this in the past where we'd have programs come in and kind of give an update on their programs and the outcomes that they're going through each so far. And so what I'd like to do and what I've proposed in the work plan is all of our normal board business that we've been doing. So if you look at March, for example, there'll be a report on outcomes. We'll have the City of Vancouver's update. We'll have our legislative advocacy committee update, a community needs assessment task force update. And then I'd also like to bring in a community action program to give a presentation. In May, I'll switch that. We'll do our normal board business, but I'll bring in a program from the Homeless Crisis Response System for them to do an update. And we'll kind of switch back and forth for each meeting. And I will continue this into next year so that the board can get regular updates directly from the programs that were funded through the request for application process. And hopefully that will increase your knowledge of what the work is that's going on in the community based on the programs that you guys selected for funding. I also just wanted to remind everyone that this is a living document, so it gets updated throughout the year as needs arise or things change. And so although we'll adopt it today, there is a high likelihood that some minor things will change throughout the year, but it's normally based on meeting the needs of the board. And with that, I will give it back to Melanie, and we do need to have a motion to adopt.
All right, thank you for that. I know I've really appreciated the program updates and hearing more about these programs that are funded. So thanks for arranging those. Would anyone like to ask questions or open the discussion before we adopt the work plan?
There's a hand from David.
David?
My question is, 'cause you were saying federal, not only county and state. I was curious if that would mean in the future that we would have some kind of bills or something like that, or connection with Congress representatives related to something with poverty or homelessness.
So the Community Action Advisory Board is designated through the Community Services Block Grant, which is a federal funding source. We have a federal lobbyist. His name is David Bradley with the National Community Action Foundation. So he does our lobbying directly with Congress in Washington, D.C. There is ongoing efforts to have the Community Services Block Grant Act reauthorized. It kind of gets into some details, but it just means that we would be guaranteed funding for community action agencies. Periodically, the Legislative Advocacy Committee will see emails from me saying, hey, there's information that's going on around the reauthorization. Sometimes they send it out to the entire board. So there is some federal advocacy opportunities specifically around the community action and the community services block grant.
Since you were talking about that name of that guy, what was his name again?
David Bradley.
David Bradley, okay. So would people be interested to have him explaining what he's doing to lobby for this, or do you think it's not connected?
That's what I was gonna ask.
He's quite expensive to bring in, but he does come to a lot of different, I've actually seen him multiple times at different conferences, like the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance Conference, which we invite board members to attend. I've also seen him at Housing Washington. And so the larger conferences, a lot of times he will participate. He would not have the time to come in and talk to a local community action agency because his workload and the work that he does directly with Congress, he is talking with the Senate and the House on a daily basis.
Can we like maybe get, because each year there's something that's being advocated for on community action, right? I mean, up there with him, well, isn't he doing something every year?
So he focuses on Community Services Block Grant Act.
Right, but is there something like, well, eventually when the bills are put out, then we'll advocate on certain bills and stuff. Is there, can we access, so we don't just have to look for him federally? I mean, you know what I'm saying? That's a lot of.
So that would be the work of the advocacy committee. They would be the ones that would do that research and say, oh, hey, I found this bill that I think is worthwhile that pertains to poverty or homelessness, and then they would bring it to the advocacy group.
Like Washington, or I mean, the Housing Alliance, like they have, a website that they have certain ones that they're just doing. Does he have one, or does CAAB?
David Bradley doesn't have one specifically because he's focused on community action. So community action encompasses Community Services Block Grant, LIHEAP, and weatherization. So there's those three components that he does at the federal level.
Does the foundation have a legislative agenda?
I don't believe so outside of those three focus areas.
It's a legislative agenda.
But there's several national level associations that I can connect you with. They should be we've provided a list before of all the different links to different things that you could do some research and look and see if they have any specific agendas. I know Wilaya is really, really good at the state level for putting that legislative agenda together.
Right. We didn't do legislative really, I mean, the federal really much last year, like advocating for it. So I mean, okay, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Melanie, I have a motion. Perkins.
All right.
I move the adoption of somebody's speakers are on. Hello. Okay, I move the adoption of the work plan as presented and the recognition that it's a living document alongside.
Second the motion.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
All those opposed say nay. All right, our 2022 work plan is adopted.
Do we discuss?
It's 2023, not 2022.
Oh. There we go.
And
Is
you-
there a need for discussion? Sorry, I
Yeah.
thought I heard a comment.
Yeah, that's okay. I think after the motion in a second, then there's typically discussion. And then once discussion is done, then the call for the vote.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Open the floor for discussion.
Hi, this is Diana Perez. Just a quick clarification. What is since it is a living document, which is great, what's the process for updating it? If somebody on the board wants to bring in an update, change, what have you?
So typically, if a board member has a specific topic they would like to have discussed at a future meeting, they can bring it up at a current meeting, and then I will take notes and make sure that it's included in the future meeting, or they can send an email to my attention before I create the agenda for the following meeting so that I can just make sure that there's enough time and provide clarity for the topic to make sure that it is specific and pertinent to the work that the CAAB is doing. And then I will just add it into the agenda for the appropriate meeting.
So I was referring to the work plan, not necessarily the meeting agendas. Or
Yes, so if the board would like, I can make an update to the work plan and actually resend the work plan out, but that hasn't been how the process has done in the past. It seems to be additional busy work that hasn't been done in the past. But if the board would appreciate an update to the work plan, I can send that out. It would not, because it's a living document, I would not be requesting additional changes or adoption to the work plan.
And Diana, just to clarify your question, you're seeking information on if there are items to be added to the work plan. If a board member wants to bring something forward, what is the process? Is that correct?
correct, because it says updates as board's needs change. So I was just wondering,
What's the process for board
what's
members?
the process?
So that can be a topic that's brought up at a meeting, and then we'll put it on the agenda for a future meeting, or they can email me independently, and then I will put it on the future meeting, into the agenda of a future meeting.
This is Rob. I have a comment.
Diana, did you get your question answered?
Not really, but I'll go along. I'm new, so I'm learning. Thank you.
My comment is that since it's the work plan, the broad strokes should not change without a motion and a vote of the
Correct.
whole
The main
committee.
things that are on the agenda don't change unless something significant would happen, and I would notify the board. The general idea of the advocacy committee, the task force updates, the city of Vancouver being brought in, program presentations, the point in time count that happens in presentation in May, all of those will happen without any, unless
Right,
somebody's.
and those are the details of the agenda. If we're talking about the work plan and modifying the work plan, that could rest very comfortably with the work of the chair and vice chair in cooperation with you, Rebecca. So the procedure that I imagine is that the officers get news of something that should be in the work plan by a board member or something, email, phone discussions, whatever. And then at the beginning of the next meeting, we have a motion to modify the work plan. The living document element's retained and everybody knows what's up.
Is this like, these are what are set in stone, these will always happen, now things will come as they come through, all things could be, if there's different things that come through, but these would be like set in stone, that's what we're voting on, right? I think that's where everybody's, I don't know.
I guess I'm not clear on what the change that would require an adoption of a new work plan.
Like in July, if I wanted to do a presentation, or if I had somebody from housing or something that wanted to come in and talk, that could be added on here because it's a living document, right? But I think she wanted to know how that process is, and you said just through emailing or at the meeting, prior meeting.
This is Alicia. I don't want to interrupt anyone else's discussion, but I want to interject, and it looks like we also have a hand up, patiently waiting with Joyce. I was going to say that the agendas are reviewed before each meeting by your executive committee. And we have the ability to add items to the agenda, to modify the agenda. And that's kind of that living document piece. The quote unquote terminology of work plan is more that upper section of the document that we just adopted, which is our ongoing efforts and our 2023 focus. It's kind of the larger boulders that as a board we are committing to. So if we wanted to stray and get off course on those core objectives, I would say that that would be something that would need a broader discussion during a board meeting, and there would need to be an amendment to the work plan that was a formal and actionable item. But
yeah, that's what I was trying to express.
Yeah,
thank you. That was my question. Thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
But yeah, I'm thinking that that's the work of the officers to review and approve for that motion. Is all I was really saying is that it would fall to the chair and vice chair to modify the propose modifications to the work plan.
And Chair, I think Joyce has had her hand up for a minute.
Sure has. Sorry, Joyce, I jumped in.
When I printed off the agenda, It looks like the agenda to adopt a work plan says 2022. Is that updated to be corrected to 2023? And the same with the 2022 elected chair, wouldn't that be 2023 elected chair?
Oh, yeah.
Or was it corrected?
So I apologize. The it should be 2023 work plan on the agenda. I apologize. That is my typo. And then are you asking about where it mentions Alicia Topper as the 2022 chair?
Well, it just says the 2022 elected chair, but now we're working with the
Oh, yes,
2023.
again, that's, I apologize. Those should both be 2023. It's like when we sign our checks with the wrong year, right? Thank you for those corrections. And thank you for the clarification. So yes, the ongoing efforts and the focus of the board rarely change. But if that were to be the case, if there were a request to expand on what the ongoing efforts are, then yes, we would take that to the executive team and then bring it to the full board.
All right, any other discussion or questions? All right, we will vote now to adopt the 2023 work plan. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, now the 2023 work plan is adopted.
We are moving faster through the agenda than I had originally planned, and I noticed that I have on the agenda an item that I did not speak to previously under board business. So if it would please the board and the chair, I'd like to go back to board business and talk about the organizational standards and provide a quick update.
That would be great.
Thank you. So the organizational standards, for those that are new, are 50 administrative requirements that every community action agency or public community action agency must meet to be able to have an efficient and functioning board. Every year, we do it's called a desk review monitoring, where we submit documentation to prove that we have met all of the requirements, all of those administrative requirements for the organizational standards. If you look at your agenda, I always include at the end of the agenda the broad categories that are included for the organizational standards. So for example, category 1 is around consumer input and involvement. Category 2 is around community engagement. And there's multiple standards under each one of those categories. So every year I provide documentation. A lot of it is around the minutes of the board that show that we are meeting all of those requirements, that we've conducted a community needs assessment, that we had involvement from the community, specifically our low-income community, in the community needs assessment. So as of just a few of those examples. Each year that we've been doing this, I believe it started in 2015, we've had 100% completion on those. All standards have been met. This last year, for those that were here at the last January meeting in 2022, we discussed the strategic plan. That is one of the requirements of the advisory board, is to follow a strategic plan, and this board follows the Department of Community Services strategic plan. We as a board decided that instead of creating a separate strategic plan, wanted to focus in on what the department was doing and the process that would be taken on through the department to really make sure we're bringing in an equity lens throughout the process of creating our next strategic plan, which meant our strategic plan would not be completed in the time frame that it would need to be to meet the organizational standards. So I just wanted to let the board know that there are a few items that have what Commerce calls technical assistance plans. It just says that we recognize that we are not meeting a standard, and this is our plan to meet that standard. We've also been in contact with Commerce so that they are aware of why we didn't meet that standard and what our process is going to be. So unfortunately, and this is my first time not having 100% compliance for the organizational standards, which is very hard for me to admit. But we do have a plan in place specifically around the strategic plan to make sure that we get back into compliance. But more importantly, we have a strong strategic plan for our department and the Community Action Advisory Board to follow.
I have a question. What specifically were we missing for the past year to be in compliance?
So the the strategic plan has to be redone or updated and approved by the Community Action Advisory Board every 5 years. And that ended in July of 2022. So as we are now currently working on the new version, it's not complete yet. We will have it complete by the end of this year. So that is what actually puts us out of compliance.
And Rebecca, this is Alicia. I recall a conversation with this board about that delay, and we chose to not rush and adopt a strategic plan to be in compliance, but to do it in concert with community services overall plan. So it wasn't that it wasn't done, it was that we made a conscious strategic decision to make sure that those two plans were married in some way.
Correct. So as we are just getting underway with the strategic plan process, and the advisory board will be brought in. There's a few components of it that are required to be reviewed by the advisory board and approved, and then the final plan will also be adopted. We're also engaging our other advisory boards throughout the department and other community stakeholders in this entire process that we're just starting to get underway. But yes, there are the board. I brought this to the board, and I believe it was the January 2022 meeting, and we decided we could go with a committee versus that, but the board voted to work with the department, which I believe is a strong position to take.
Great, thank you for the update. Joyce, do you have your hand risen, or is it just still from your last question? Okay,
No,
thank you.
I was wondering, what are the ramifications of not having an updated strategic plan?
So we technically fall under the previous strategic plan, so we just keep working under the goals of that strategic plan until a new strategic plan is fully adopted. And then I don't have 100% compliance with the organizational standards, which is actually, we're one of the very few community action agencies in Washington state that has maintained 100% status on that every year, which I've been very proud of. So it's extra work for me to go back and update our organizational standards in that desk review monitoring compliance process. And we just fall under the previous strategic plan.
Has his hand up.
Michael? Did you want to speak?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There are no ramifications is really like the bottom line. We've, as Alicia brought up, this was a decision actually made by the board in voting in January. We've actually spoken with our program officers at Commerce. They know where we're at with our current strategic plan and what the department is doing moving forward. And actually, Commerce agrees with us that this is the way to go. It is not uncommon actually, it's very, very uncommon for community action agencies to have 100% compliance on all things, especially with COVID. And honestly, that's the main reason why we're doing the strategic plan this year, and we didn't do it last year, because with COVID, we've been managing a lot of the COVID funding and the COVID reports. So I think this discussion is really good to have, but just so everyone understands, there we're using the term compliance because that's the construct that Commerce and the Office of Community Services that runs community action utilizes, but there is no deficit. We're not we're not failing in any grades or anything like that. They monitor status of all requirements in community action through this organizational standards framework, and it just is what it is until all the objectives are met.
Thank you for that clarification. And I recall that discussion and remember being specifically purposeful around that decision. All right. Any other thoughts on this before we move on to our next speakers? Because it looks like Samantha and Jamie are both present. All right. So I'll turn the floor over to Samantha with Whiteley with City of Vancouver and Jamie Spinelli, who's our board member and also with the City of Vancouver staff.
We can't hear you, Sam.
Nope, not yet. Maybe Jamie can jump in. We're not hearing any audio.
Jamie, you're muted.
I think I just heard her laugh.
Sam, if you want to log out, log back in, try some kind of magic. I don't know.
WebEx is not muted for, but so that means that a microphone is muted.
But I'll go ahead and start mine, I suppose. So we are moving forward with Safe State Community 3. I should have a timeline for when we'd be opening that site somewhere in the next 2-ish weeks. So that's very exciting. We should be putting out the 6-month report for our second Safe State Community, which is Hope Village over on 4th Plain, sometime also in the next few weeks, as well as the 1-year report for our first Safe State Community sometime in the next couple of weeks. But they're all doing very well. In fact, the just kind of exciting news in regards, like it relates to advocacy, the governor came down as well as Department of Commerce to visit some of our sites. They were very excited about it. And the governor invited a resident from the Outpost, which is our first safe stay, to the State of the State that's coming up here soon. So that's exciting for that young man. Trying to think if there's anything else from the last time that I haven't shared already. Biennium budget was approved, so we have funding for an additional 2 safe state communities and another safe park. More to come on those, as well as funding for another HEART team member, which would largely be outreach, and then funding for another HEART police officer. Like there's probably a lot more, but that's all that's coming to me at this moment. But I'm happy
Jamie,
to answer questions.
how many Safe Stay members would that bring the team up to? Or I mean, not Safe Stay, HEART team members would that bring the team up to?
So including myself, we would have new one. When all of the positions are filled, that'd be 6.
Fantastic. Thank you.
We likely won't be getting an officer for a while though, because everybody knows we are already short officers as it is, but BPD is very supportive of giving us another one when they have another one available.
Question from David.
Sure.
I have a question for you. Can you explain what is a HEART officer? What do they do? How are they different than a policeman?
So he is still a policeman. But the role of everyone on Heart, first and foremost, is outreach and engagement. And then, so Officer Chavers is our current officer, and I don't know, he helps us in a lot of ways. So number one, he provides a lot of outreach. He attends all of the coordination meetings within the homeless crisis response system to make sure that we're connecting people to services as needed and as available. But he also does like all of our postings for like camp cleanups and make sure that everything that we're doing falls within the law, constitutional law. So he's also kind of risk management in a way. And then anytime enforcement is needed, that's kind of what he's available for. But I would say that's almost never utilized. So he's kind of a liaison between BPD and city manager's office and the Heart team. That makes sense.
Thanks for that explanation. This is Karen Kameroff. I have a question. If you know the statistics for how many people have moved from the from temporary housing into like either permanent supportive housing or transitional housing or anything like that.
Sure. So I don't have all of the data yet for site 2. That's still being compiled. For site 1, we have served a total of 79 people, and I think it was 33 of those have moved into permanent housing. It was like a 40%, 40.5% rate.
Thank you.
I believe we have Sam here, and she called in, so we should hopefully be able to hear.
Well, I thought I'd try this one more time. Sounds like it's working, so I'm going to hang up my phone.
Okay, hi, everybody. No?
Yes, we can hear you, but not very loud.
Okay. Maybe I should have stuck with the phone, but thank you for having me and thank you for your patience and Happy New Year. I sent over a few slides to talk about our Affordable Housing Fund updates. I think I've updated this board before. The City Council has voted to put a renewal levy for affordable housing on the ballot for voters to consider on February 14th. That's a special election next month, so that's pretty exciting. If it's approved, the amount would be $10 million per year for 10 years. So $100 million in affordable housing investment from starting in 2024 if the voters want us to do that. So we're looking forward to seeing how that will turn out. And we're also, we're on a similar schedule with the, yes, I was moving on to CDBG. Thank you, Rebecca. We're on a similar schedule with the county on how we process and receive and fund CDBG home applications. And we also put some of our homeless services in this RFP that are funded through the Affordable Housing Fund. So we received these 4 business assistance applications. We also received 3 applications for public facilities construction. We have multiple applications. The next slide will show our public services, and this is one of our most popular categories. And it's also one of our most competitive because we have limited CDBG dollars. Only 15% per year of our entitlement can be used for public services. So that's only about $195,000. We've had some increased flexibility in the past couple of years when we had the CV funds, but now we're no longer able to use that flexibility, and we will be limited to the 15%, unfortunately. So these are all the public service requests that we received, and a lot of them are focused on homeless services. And then next slide is our housing programs that are funded with CDBG and home. These are tenant-based rental assistance programs paired with case management. And then we have the homeless supportive services. We have not yet submitted our home art plan to HUD, but we are ready to do that. It will be going before the City Council and be going out for public comment here. We're kind of waiting to get through the holidays And now we do need to submit that to HUD by March. So we'll have that submitted and we'll have some home ARP funding to award with this year's process. And then we still have more applications, housing projects for new construction. We've had some applicants that we are planning to use home funds for. We may have additional affordable housing fund dollars in the spring that we will look at all of the projects that have been funded over the past 6 years with affordable housing funds. If there are any that are underspent or haven't moved forward, we're going to have to make some hard decisions with those agencies and then reallocate the funds for 2023. So there's a possibility that some of these housing projects could have some flexibility to get some affordable housing fund dollars because there is limited home dollars available. And then we also have temporary shelter and rental assistance that we fund with Affordable Housing Fund. So we received applications for those pots of money as well. And then finally, while I am sharing all this information about all these applications with you, I'm hoping that somebody from the CAAB board might be interested in helping us with the scoring. I know Jamie is already helping us, but I would be welcome. We'd be happy to have anybody else that's involved with the county homelessness programs providing input on our funding priorities. And this is kind of short notice because we haven't started anything yet. We've sent out one email to the scoring committee, but we'll be having our first intro meeting, and that reviews all of the applications briefly and the process. So that will be January 12th, and that will be a Teams meeting. And then we will send out all of the applications, and we do some risk assessments on the agencies and provide staff objective scoring. So we will send that out in mid-January. And then the thing that probably takes the most time is listening to the presentations. So you read through the applications, that also takes some time, but you can then participate in the presentations from applicants, similar to what the CAAB does already. You can ask questions about their applications. Even though I showed a lot of applications, we only ask scorers to do 10 applications, and we kind of split those up into the different categories that you were seeing. So if you have an interest in business assistance and you want to look at our business assistance applications, we would put you in that group. You'd only have 10 applications to review and score. And then in February, we'll meet to show how all the scores have worked out and make sure that the committee likes the way the scores fell and the way the awards are planning to be presented to the city council, which will happen in March. And then we will submit our action plan in May to HUD with all of the proposed funding awards. Then the program year and the funding actually doesn't start until July. So that is the whole process. I'm happy to take any questions, and I'm happy if you want to think about it and reach out to me by email. And one other thing, it's on this slide, but I meant to say, if any of those dates don't quite work for you, we'll have the meetings recorded so that you can catch up and watch them at a different time, or request information. We can meet one-on-one, like for the information session, or if you have any questions outside of the process. So thank you for considering that, and thank you for waiting for my speaker to work. And thanks for having me.
Samantha, this is Diana. Can you go to the previous slide, please? So these 23 applications received, when was the deadline for this?
They were due middle of December. I think the 16th was a Friday, and that was the day they were due. The applications originally opened October 3rd.
Okay, all right. I'd like to follow up with you on the rent vouchers one.
Sure. Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sam or Jamie? All right, if you're interested in being a part of the scoring process, please connect with Sam. Would that be the best route? Okay. Thank you so much for the update. Always appreciate hearing what's happening at the city level. And with that, we're a little bit early, but I think we will take our 15-minute break. So we'll regroup about 10:27. See you then. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So next we have Michael here to share information about the Community Services Strategic Plan Update, which is our org standard 6.5. Michael, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Melanie. Good morning, everyone. Michael Torres, Program Manager with Clark County Community Services. And we actually already started this conversation earlier in this meeting. So as you know, Clark County Community Services is the community action agency for Clark County. We are the entity that receives the community services block grant funds from the state and the federal government that make us a community action agency, and we have organizational standards that are requirements associated with how we use those funds and how we provide oversight. One of those things is that we do a strategic plan. Now, Clark County Community Services, the department, does its own strategic plan, and the community, and this is how we've been doing it to this point, and the CAAB adopts the department plan as the community action strategic plan as well. So the last strategic plan, every year when we do this meeting, we give you an update on where we were at with the strategic plan. The last strategic plan was 2017 through 2022. The department would have actually, we tried to start a couple times during the year, but just with all the COVID pandemic activities we were doing, it really wasn't possible for us to really coalesce around it. So the department is now starting to work on its strategic plan that will be in place from the end of this year through the next 5 years. And where we are at right now is we have hired a consultant that we are working with internally. His name is Jackie St. Louis. He used to work at the city before Jamie took a position, if not the same one, but very similar to him. He was her predecessor. He is works on behavioral health, and he has a lot of experience with homeless and poverty systems and funding sources and services. So we are excited to work with him. He also has a very strong equity focus. We have, the department is going to be focused on equity, on race equity, centering race equity a lot throughout this strategic plan. Jackie is, where we're at is we have created a strategic plan steering committee within the department with department staff. We've had an initial meeting with Jackie St. Louis 2 weeks ago. So it was an introductory meeting. We will be doing interviews with individuals and teams in community service staff and developing the strategic planning process that we will use early in this first quarter of 2023. We will be doing the department-wide strategic planning kickoff during community services does an all staff meeting every quarter. So we will be doing the strategic planning kickoff during our all staff meeting for quarter 1, 2023. We don't have the date yet for that, but that will be an in-person all staff meeting. Staff and stakeholder meetings and focus groups in support of plan development will start happening late quarter 1, 2023. And we will be drafting the strategic plan the second half of quarter 2, 2023. Presentations of the draft to all staff and the CAAB we are expecting will be happening in late quarter 2 or early quarter 3, 2023. And the CAAB is going to not only receive presentations of the draft, but being asked for feedback to give on that. And we expect that we will be bringing the plan to the CAAB for approval in Q3 2023. And following that, we will be focused on implementation. So by the end of this year, the department strategic plan will have been approved by you. Once we have it approved, we do, publish it and put it online at the department website and also on the CAAB website. So I just wanted to give you an update on where we are at. We're in the very, very early stages. We have our consultant. We've had one meeting where the introduction to the department staff committee that happened, and we will be kickoff at the all staff and focus group meetings with staff. So any questions? I mean, that's the update for where we're at with the strategic plan.
Yes. Hi, Michael. This is Diana from the
Hi,
city.
Diana.
Is this an annual plan that's done, or how many years is this plan for?
It's a 5-year strategic plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it encompasses all the activities the Department of Community Services does. So you will see areas that focus on housing, areas that focus on behavioral health, areas that focus on holistic wellness, including services for people with disabilities. So everything that the department does, not only community action, but because we are the community action agency, it makes sense for that to be the community action strategic plan as opposed to a subset of the departments. And we do ask for all the boards that community services works with. We actually work with like about 5 different boards, Urban County Policy Board, the Veterans Advisory Board, the Disabilities Advisory Board, Community Action Advisory Board, Urban County Policy Board. We do ask all of them for, we present on the plan, on the draft, and we ask for some feedback from all of them. But the only board that we really ask approval of the plan formally is the CAAB.
And by when did you say the approval was going to be? I'm sorry, I didn't catch when that was.
It's going to be Q3 2023 is when we are anticipating that, so that we can publish it and start working on implementation in Q4. So Q1, I mean, really big picture. Q1, we're looking at kickoff and early stages, working on focus groups. Q2, we're looking at drafting. Q3, we're looking at feedback, draft edits, and approval.
Thank you.
Any other questions before I move on? All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right. Next up is Amy with a Legislative Advocacy Task Force update.
Well, on that one, session doesn't start until Monday, so I don't know when all the bills are coming out, but I think it's after that. But who do we all have on that this time? Just me? Am I the only one on the task force right now? Who else is on it?
I think with the new year, we would want to recruit new members. So this might be a good time to do a call for Legislative Advocacy Task Force members. And I can give an overview of what that responsibility is.
Okay, I hope you're going to be on me.
So the Legislative Advocacy Task Force, last year we focused on Washington State and bills that impacted low-income communities, people in poverty, BIPOC members, and we just kept an eye on all bills, and we were able to virtually sign in either in opposition or in support. And there were occasions where we were able to reach out to our legislative representatives from the 49th, 17th, 18th district, and now even there's a portion of the 20th that is in Clark County, to ask them to either support or oppose particular legislation based on its impacts. We had adopted the legislative agenda from the Washington Low Income Housing Alliance, just to keep us focused and able to track, because, there's hundreds and hundreds of bills, and if we're not really targeted, you can get distracted. So this year, we would essentially need the committee to identify what priority bills we were gonna focus on, be willing to sign in opposition or in support of particular bills, and even potentially testify if the need arises. So it's a fun group. It does require, I would say, at least an hour and a half a week, because bills do move quickly and you have to stay on top of it. We did meet virtually via WebEx or Zoom, so it was pretty easy to participate. And I think the schedule of meetings would be dependent on the people who are on the committee. I think we had Karen, Amy, Rob, me, and David on the committee last year. It would be nice if there are any new members of the board who would be interested in getting involved to volunteer. And did I miss anything, Rob or David, Amy, Karen?
That sounded like all of it.
I could add that we kind of split up stuff so that we're not all doing the same thing and copying each other. Same time, be more logical. So Amy might take a couple bills she's very interested in. I would take a couple. Alicia, everybody would take a couple bills they're interested in. And that way it made it a little bit less of a burden as well. And we don't have responsibility 2 or 3 bills to instead of 10, all of us at the same time.
Good point. So I think, Chair, we would love to have folks volunteer. The session does start on Monday, like Amy reported.
It's a long session, so it'll be 105 days.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have any CAB members that would like to participate in the Legislative Advocacy Task Force team?
Come on, guys.
Come on.
Joyce has her hand up.
I have a question. Who do you work with to decide whether you want or don't want a bill to pass? Or how you would like it amended?
The process that we followed, we used the executive committee to bring forward the legislative agenda, and I think the full board had an opportunity. I can't recall if we did it via email. We may have, to just make sure that they were in agreement with the priority areas. And then we left it up to the task force to just ensure that the support or opposition was in alignment with what the executive committee and the CAB wanted. So there is a little bit of, critical thinking on the impacts of the bill. You have to read the briefs that are produced. But it was mostly the committee discussing it. Yeah.
No takers.
So Rob, are you going to continue to participate?
This is secretary now.
I was appointed vice chair of the school board, so my time is a little bit more constrained this year than last.
Okay, and Karen?
Decline.
That's okay, understood.
I just accepted a new position at work that is really time consuming as well. And I started school again, so I don't think that I have the capacity.
And what about Lance or Megan? Our new members?
With the officer, sorry, heard an echo. With the obligations I have at home right now with mental health concerns for my children, I would not be doing the position justice.
Okay, thank you for considering.
I'll do it.
Thank you, Joyce. David, are you going to continue to participate?
Well, I will try my best to do it. I've been kind of busy with my work responsibilities.
Okay. Okay.
And Alicia, would you be continuing on? That gives us 4 board members. We also have some new board members that are still in the application stage. And as I read through their resumes, a couple of them had some really strong advocacy work that they've already doing. So maybe they'll be interested. But we will be growing the board. We still have 5 positions that are vacant at this time. And so we can introduce and bring them on board and hopefully have them participate with the advocacy committee.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. All right, so next, the CNA task force update. Rebecca, do you want to share what's going on in that committee?
Yes, I'm excited for the community needs assessment. Our task force will actually be meeting next week. We did not meet in December. We have the survey of needs is drafted and complete, and it's been sent to we selected a translation agency, and so they are currently working on translating the document for us. So we'll have it available again, as we did the last time, in English, Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, and Chuukese. And so that process is going. I should have that back next week. We'll do a final formatting of the survey. I've also been engaging with our communications department to update our flyer that will go along with the survey of needs. Once I have all of that complete, I can send it to the printer so we can print out hundreds of copies of all of the surveys, and then we'll be working with Janet to get those out to all of the participating partnerships that we have in the community. There's roughly 100 different agencies that we'll be sending packets to. I also will upload the English version is already available online. I just need to upload the information for the different languages. So those are available. Unfortunately, we use SurveyMonkey, and Chuukese is yet again not available online. So we will be moving forward with having the survey online in English, Spanish, Russian, and Vietnamese, but unfortunately not Chuukese. I've also resent a frustrated email to SurveyMonkey to include more options for language availability for their surveys, so that maybe that will change in the future. And I'm hoping to have the survey of needs, as discussed by the task force at our last meeting, available starting mid-January, in time for the point in time count, and more specifically for Project Homeless Connect. And so I'll make sure that we have a table at Project Homeless Connect so that anyone coming to that facility for different services, we will try to get them to complete a survey at that time. So really excited. And then the survey will be available for 90 days. So mid-April, it will complete the survey, and then we'll start the next process. In the meantime, the survey, the Community Needs Assessment Task Force is going to help me start looking for other needs assessments that are provided in the community and things like that. So we will keep rolling forward with all of the different components that go into the community needs assessment. But I'm excited that the survey is just about ready to go out. That is the biggest component of the entire needs assessment.
I have a question.
Yes.
Clarification, you said that it will be in English, Spanish, Russian, and what was the language?
Vietnamese and Chuukese.
For the interpreter, can you spell that?
CHUUKESE. It's a Polynesian language that we have a growing community here in Clark County that is highly disproportionately part of our homeless crisis response system.
Interesting. Let's say about them at Gallaudet. It was one of the things I majored. We read a book about Chuukese people before and how their culture is very different.
It is very, very different. One of the things that I'm learning about their culture is that it's a spoken language, so they don't have a lot of written language. And so learning how to make sure we communicate and provide the accessibility to the survey of needs and all of the other process that's being incorporated into this next process. So
yeah, their island sank and they all immigrated around here is the story that I have. And
Oh, it sank? Is that why?
yeah, rising sea levels cause the soils to be too salty.
What I had studied in the past is that they were considered by Chinese part of China, and they never identified that way. They identify as their own people, no matter where they had moved, no matter what country they're in. They do not identify and get assimilated into the new culture. They stay their own people, which makes it very interesting when we are trying to provide service for them. We have to recognize that they do not identify as, hey, we're Americans now that we're in America. They're their own people. And I can empathize with the idea that they don't have a printed language, like ASL is not printed. And that's why I get concerned when we're going to have surveys online. SurveyMonkey also does not have the ability to put in videos next to it. I don't believe that we can have it in ASL inset. I'm not sure.
I will need to do some research on SurveyMonkey's functionality for that. But thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't even think about looking into that.
I have seen some.
Because deaf people, many of them, especially that are homeless and poor, are not fluent in written English. The average for a lot of deaf people is 4th to 5th grade English reading comprehension. So if it's intimidating, people aren't going to do it if it's not a language that they're fluent in. Thank you.
Rebecca, I have seen some examples, like there is a church or two that's printing Chukis using the Roman alphabet. I don't know how much uptake it's had.
We work with a translation agency that specifically works with Chuukese interpreters to do as closely as possible as we can to the language.
Right. So you're set.
I'm wondering if having someone from the Chuukese community come and share a presentation about their culture may be interesting for the board, because we are definitely seeing them overrepresented in the homeless population. And I've seen some great presentations. I know Council for the Homeless has some staff that are Chuukese bicultural. Vancouver Public Schools, we're working on it here in Evergreen, but it's definitely a population that's growing. And it's just really interesting to hear about the agreement that they have with the US based on how their island was used during times of war. So would that be of interest to anyone else on the board to have a presentation?
Yeah.
I would.
Okay, we can add that to one of our future meetings. Melanie, I'll get with you on when that might be somebody may have available to do that presentation.
I have a quick question, if I may. Other than language, has there been a specific barrier analysis done on for the Chuukese community?
I'm not aware specifically of what has been done. I know Council for the Homeless is very involved and works directly with a few different local community-based organizations that specifically serve the Chuukese population. So that's something that they may have done.
Yeah, barrier analysis that's very specific to the culture, I think might open up other, in terms of this needs assessment, other things that would be needed. The one size fits all is not the answer, right? And maybe there's something specific that we're missing, we're not seeing. Is that common practice to do a barrier analysis for certain groups?
I'm not aware that we have undertaken that task. Michael might know more information of what's been done for the homeless crisis response system.
Yeah, there's not been a barrier analysis done specifically for Chuukese. We do work with Council for the Homeless and publish an equity report, a system-wide equity report every year. Part of our contract requirements with all our service providers that have contracts with us is they track demographic data on the homeless management information system. And we use that data to see the disproportionality in terms of demand for services and the delivery of services and success with the outcomes for the services that are delivered. So that information is published every year, and you can see the equity report on the Council for Homeless website. And I believe they already published 2021's is already on the report. 2022's is still several months away.
Megan, did you have your hand up?
I did. I was just going to echo that with the state in adult protective services, we're seeing an increase in having to communicate with that population as well. And so I can start looking at other information that the state has put together because we're also trying to find better means of communicating them with when we're doing our investigations, as well as best practices when we're interacting with them in a cultural or spiritual way.
I would like to say, this is David Poland, that I really appreciated you guys are trying to respect this culture that is new here and find out what specific needs they have, which may be different than a general population, because that is usually not considered. And I would request that we do this for the deaf culture as well, because everyone seems to think in general terms that I hear people think that all deaf people are white, American, and read English. And they are very, very wrong. It's like Native Americans all have different tribes, deaf people come in all flavors, and the culture is not the same. The rules of politeness are not the same. And I keep hearing from the deaf community that services are being dropped for them. It's hard to explain. I'm trying to keep this short, but I have to advocate for my people here. I'm the deaf representative. And the Deaf Center, I'm putting this one on the line, so on record, the Deaf Center here that has been established since the 1980s is not serving the deaf population right now. They are not seeing their clients. So we have a crisis where we do not have people that they can go to. And so that may mean that things are going to get worse this year than they have been in the past. So please, while you're helping other linguistic minorities, especially people of color, don't forget deaf people come in all colors, and they are often being neglected with services that hearing people are being provided. Thank you.
For sharing any other comments before we move on to the next topic? Okay. All right, so Amy shared this via email yesterday, so thanks for bringing this to our attention, but the Working Families Tax Credit. Amy, do you want to share more about this resource?
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So this is new this year. And what it is basically you need to live in the state of Washington for 183 days, which is 6 months. And it doesn't have to be consecutive. It just has to be throughout 2022. Be between the age of 25 and 65, or have a qualifying child in 2022 if you're younger. And you have to file the 2022 tax return. And you have to qualify for the earned income credit, which I always thought you had to have a kid to qualify for that, but apparently you don't. So anybody can file for this in Washington State, as long as you meet and the web pages are right there. You can go to see the qualifying the income, that's what word am I looking for?
Eligibility requirements.
Eligibility requirements, there we go, that's it. And yeah, so I have, you guys aren't here though, but I have these that if you guys would like to put up at wherever you're at, they're little flyers to let people know, because we're trying to get the word out. People don't know that if you do your own taxes sometimes, you may not know this because this is something new, but I mean, the H&R Block and stuff like that will know. But, yeah, that's, any questions? Like, I don't know if I covered everything. Sure, I did cover everything, but.
And I poked around, this is Melanie, I poked around the website and it was really straightforward. They had FAQs that were really clear. So that's something that's easy to share out.
And you
so
only have
hopefully-
to make $1. The minimum is $1. You have to make $1 in 2022. And the least amount that you could get for the return is $50. And it goes all the way up to $1,200 for qualifying children. I think it's like $1,200 for 3. I think it's 9 for 2 and 6 for 1. And then, but you don't have to have children to qualify for this, but you do have to qualify for the earned income credit on your tax return. And you need a social security number or an I-10. And you can do that, and it starts, I didn't tell you guys lots, it starts February 1st and goes till December 31st of 2023 to be able to apply for this.
Joyce, do you have a question?
Hmm?
Looks like Joyce has a question.
Joyce has a question. Well, I'm just wondering, we all assume that everybody has a computer and knows how to use it. Unfortunately, that is not the case. So how do you put this out to the community in a bulletin form? Do you put them up at the post office? How would you spread it around the community?
That's what I'm doing the outreach here. I'm starting here. This is my very first time presenting it and starting with you guys. And now I'm gonna go around and to the different places, DSHS, put one up there, put one at the Council for the Homeless, Vancouver Housing Authority. So it's kind of like, oh, Neckley.
What about post offices and schools? Is that acceptable?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. So how do you coordinate that, or do you just call the school districts and the post office to see if you can put those up? Libraries?
I was just gonna go to it. I didn't think really much about
If a board member was interested in posting flyers, where would they, how could they get those flyers to post?
Well, we've got some here, but there is a place on the website that people are able to print those off. I guess you can contact me and I can find a way to get them to you.
Okay, so it sounds like you can print some from the website and display them at areas local to where the board members are at, or businesses near you. Or you should have Amy's email address. You can connect with her and she can coordinate getting some of those posters so that they can be distributed out throughout Clark County.
Yes, and I'll go put them up there or you guys can have them do it, but.
I'll definitely take one for my workplace.
Okay.
And thank you for sharing the information.
Other languages too. I will be getting more of those, but perfect. Know about the one you were talking about, but I will definitely find out. Okay. I don't know how to say the name.
Chukis.
Chukis. And that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you so much. All right, I already shared that out with my FCRC team, so know that Evergreen School, FCRC schools are covered, so we can pass that information along to families. All right, so next we're going to turn over to Rebecca for the CHAD Unit 2022 accomplishment. She sent this out via email yesterday, along with some other documents that I think Vanessa Augustin's covering tomorrow. But we'll hand it over to you, Rebecca.
Yeah, so Michael and I thought it would be kind of a fun thing to do is to share the accomplishments. Every year our department does our all staff meeting at the end of the year, and managers tend to share out the accomplishments of their unit. And this year we put together a fun presentation to use during our last all staff. So we thought it would be great to be able to share that here. Vanessa also thought it was a great idea and she wanted to share all of the unit's accomplishments. So that's the PowerPoint that was sent via email yesterday. She will not be talking specifically to those documents that were sent yesterday, but if you have any questions, once you've looked at them, she's happy to answer those questions while she's visiting tomorrow during our meeting. But I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about the CHAD unit and our accomplishments over 2022. So one of the things that a lot of people don't know is what CHAD actually stands for. We talk about CHAD as our unit, but CHAD stands for Community Action, Housing, and Development. We partner with nonprofits, community-based organizations, and local governments to serve people who are low income, houseless, and we also serve veterans by providing access to services, access to housing, and better neighborhood environments. We deal with a lot of different funding sources, which you've seen, but this is actually all of the funding sources throughout our unit. So you're used to seeing some of these, the document recording fees, marriage license, our human services fund, but we also have the Veterans Assistance Fund and an affordable housing fund out of Senate Bill 1406. Those are all local funds. At the state level, we have the Consolidated Homeless Grant and the Community Services Block Grant, which you're used to seeing on the reports. And then at the federal level, we have Community Development Block Grant funds. We also get an allocation of Community Services Block Grant funds at the federal level, so that's not a typo. We get state and federal allocations. We also have the Home Investment Partnerships Program and the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program that we oversee here in our CHAD unit. And then this last year, we had a lot of COVID funding, as we've had for the last couple of years. That COVID-related funding includes the Emergency Rent Assistance 1 and 2. So that's the federal and state level emergency rent assistance programs that we've been operating for the last 2 years now. We have the Emergency Rent Assistance Program 1 and 2, that's all known as ERAP. It comes through the state, but it is a combination of state and federal funds that are provided to us. There's the Emergency Solutions Grant, which is COVID-specific funding for from the federal government outside of the, they have also in the Emergency Solutions Grant, but this is the COVID-related allocation. There's the American Rescue Plan Act, that is federal funds that go to the county, and then our unit had applied through the county for specific funds to help our homeless crisis response system during COVID. There's a Community Development Block Grant, COVID-related funds. There's also Community Service Block Grant, COVID-related funds, and then Home American Rescue Plan federal funds. So we received a lot of different COVID-related funds that our entire unit has been working with. This is just a quick little overview of the funds that were expended between January and October of 2022. So you can see that our unit out of the full department expended over $47 million from January to October. It's actually closer to 50 million after some additional rent assistance was provided at the last 3 months of the year. And then a special thanks to our finance team. We work very closely with them, and they're the reason that those $50 million actually got reimbursed to the programs and nonprofits. Yes.
Just a very quick interruption, because I know the CAAB is going to ask, hey, can we get reports on all of these expenses? Why aren't you giving us the reports? We do. You received them the last CAAB meeting. They're all the expense reports, along with the revenue reports. All of this is already reflected on that. So just FYI, we're reporting just big picture accomplishments on the funding that we are already reporting to you, and you're receiving in a lot of detail separately.
And I have a question. This is Alicia. Those reports, I'm a huge fan of them, and I should know the answer to this, but are they available on the county website?
Yes.
Yes, they are. They are on the CAAB website, both in presentation form and slides.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Speaking of advisory boards, our unit is responsible for staffing 4 boards. Currently, the Community Action Advisory Board, which we do 6 meetings a year. I staff the board, and then Beth, Michael, and Janet provide additional support. We have the Veterans Advisory Board. They do 10 meetings a year. Emily is staff to that board, and Michael provides additional support when needed. There's the Urban County Policy Board, which does roughly 6 meetings per year. Michael staffs that board, and then Emily, myself, and Janet provide additional support. And then there's the Continuum of Care Steering Committee, which does approximately 10 meetings per year, and Michael staffs that. We also provided many presentations to the Clark County Council, either at their council meetings or during council time. There were 12 different presentations on a variety of our programs that we oversee. And then the Ending Chronic Homelessness Organization, or ECHO, that Michael and Vanessa support, there was 3 separate presentations done to that group. So we've been busy providing information about all of the work that we've been doing all year long. This is just a fun picture that Michael provided for some hilarity during our all-staff meeting. Between January and November, just to kind of get an idea of the work, some of the back scene work that we do a lot, there were 173 contracts or contract modifications. And that was with 43 different organizations. So that was between January and November. I also sent through a few more modifications in late November and December. So I like to keep our contracts team very busy. We had multiple audits and monitorings this year. We had 5 major audits and monitorings, some from Commerce for the program monitoring, which is an in-depth review of the programs to make sure that we are using all the funds accordingly, meeting all of the requirements of the funding. So our Community Development Block Grant, COVID funding, and then the Community Services Block Grant and the COVID-related Community Service Block Grant funds were audited or monitored at a program level. And then we also had the state auditor's office come in and audit multiple funding sources. They did a community development block grant single audit, and then they also audited the treasury funds that we have, both the treasury direct funds under TRA and the state allocation that is known as TRAP, which for program monitorings, these are usually multiple day monitorings that you're answering questions from the auditors or the state representatives. It goes quite in depth. For the Community Service Block Grant monitoring, we brought Alicia in as the chair of the board to answer questions and provide clarifications and verify that the things that I say that we are getting done in our meetings and for the board are actually being done.
And I just add that we did a typo here. It's 6 major audits and monitoring. I did not include LIHEAP, but that was also a major monitoring and audit that we had this year.
Thank you, Michael.
And LIHEAP means what?
So LIHEAP is the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, and you can access that through the Clark Public Utilities.
Energy assistance.
So we had some staff changes this year. We had brought on some project positions to help with our COVID-related funding. And with that, we brought on Tom Breitenbach, Mary Bedford Carter, and Jasmine Guillen-Loera. And all 3 of us had to leave us in 2022. Tom left us for a better position. He's now working for Beacon Health, doing a more regional behavioral health and homelessness position. Mary Bedford Carter left for a better fit position, managing operations for a Portland organization. And Jasmine left, unfortunately, due to rising housing costs, and she was unable to stay in the community. She went to stay with family where she can save up some funds, but she promises to be back, and we're keeping a close eye on that because we would love to have her back in our unit. But because we had to say goodbye to a few, we also wanted to say hello to a new couple people. Luis and Kayla were brought in as project positions to help us with those COVID funds. We're excited to have them here. And most excitingly, we have a program coordinator in training. Her name is Isla Grace Obaza. She was born to Beth and Patrick on November 18th. She is absolutely adorable. I've been able to hold her a couple of different times now, and she is extremely sweet and makes me think maybe babies are more in my future. Not really. So then we wanted to go in and we'll talk a little bit more about like the different areas of the CHAD unit. So community action, we did our request for applications, which resulted in 6 contracts. We also had additional funding that came in called through a state process known as a proviso budget. And these additional funds were received specifically to assist BIPOC-led agencies and BIPOC-focused programs to increase access to and positive outcomes for from social service programs in Clark County for our BIPOC households. We expanded our Community Action Advisory Board from 12 to 15 members, technically 16 with our at-large position with David. We also completed the full community needs assessment process, which released and available in the 5 different languages from the last project that we did, not to mention that we started the new process. And then again, we had that program audit for our regular and our COVID funding with no concerns, no findings, and no recommendations. So an absolutely clean program monitoring, which is perfection. Under our housing and homelessness services, there were 2 new shelters that opened. There was actually technically a soft opening at the very end of 2021, but they really got the shelters up and running. Bertha's Place and Bertha's 2 added 94 rooms. They are non-congregate shelters, specifically for seniors and singles and couples to access new shelter. Through November, there were 221 persons served in those 2 shelters. We did our homeless crisis response system request for application where we funded 29 new contracts. We also had a home request for application, which resulted in 5 new rent assistance contracts and 2 new construction or acquisition contracts, which will bring on more affordable housing here in our community. We operated the Treasury Rent Assistance Program. So just in 2022, this program started in 2021, but just in 2022, there was over $25 million in rent and utility assistance provided to 3,600 households here in Clark County. When we look at the total program to date, it was over 55 million to nearly 6,800 households. We also have the new Council for the Homeless Equity Report that gets published to take a look at how our homeless crisis response system is doing around serving different communities and the disproportionality that we see of BIPOC households in our homeless crisis response system. And we have started the Homeless Action Plan update, which gets done every few years. Also under our housing and homelessness category, we are required to do housing quality standards inspections for all of our home funded projects. So as long as they're in their affordability period, which is usually 10, 15, 20 years. This year, there was 25 facilities that were inspected for a total of 79 units to make sure that they are up to HUD standards for their quality of the unit. Our housing preservation program assisted 13 households. We also have some other emergency services that are provided regarding heat and air conditioning. Air conditioning is new to this last year. 90 clients were served with the AC air conditioning program, and we had 49 heat program clients served. There's LIHEAP, again, the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program, assisted over 2,200 households, and a new LIWAP program, so Low Income Home Water Assistance Program, was established and served 212 households. And then here's a couple of pictures of a brand new affordable apartment complex called Columbia Heights, and it created 69 new affordable units in our community.
Who's that?
Michael, do you know where this one is located? I forgot if it's off of Fourth Plain.
Yeah.
It's off of Fourth Plain, but I don't remember the address. I can look it up.
Under asset and economic development, so part of our development side, we had our CDBG request for application, which resulted in 3 new contracts. And we also assisted over 200 businesses with technical assistance. There was 1 new home purchased, and 2 are currently in process. So new low affordable home ownership for low income families. And then here's just a couple of pictures. One is that brand new house that was purchased, and another is one of the businesses that received technical assistance through Mercy Corps' business assistance program funded through our department. On the other side of the development, we also do quite a bit of work in neighborhood improvements. Our community development block grant request for application resulted in 4 new contracts. And there were several projects that were undertaken this last year, one of them being Hamlet Park, which is in Washougal, so brand new park facilities available there. And another is Northeast 2nd Street. This is an improvement to the walkability. It included sidewalks, and then water and sewer, water line replacement, and those water lines, main water line and laterals to each of the households across the street, and the sidewalks to make it a more available project for the community. So that is the highlights of the CHAD unit for 2022.
And Columbia Heights is Mill Plain. It's off Mill Plain, not Fourth Plain, and it's 409 Northeast 93rd Avenue.
Thank you, Michael.
The new one that's over by Peace Health, kind of.
Yes.
I have a question. So on your slide, we talk about HQS inspected 25 facilities and 79 units, so they're safe. Does it mean they go into a person that's living there, there's apartment or empty apartment? What does that look like?
They're currently occupied. So the facility itself has home investment partnership funding that goes into the construction of the project. And over the next several years, we make sure that those units stay livable and have a quality standard to them. And so, yes, we schedule time to go in and inspect the units. Each unit is inspected on a 3-year rotating basis.
I think I understand now.
Questions for Rebecca? Thank you so much for sharing. I mean, that was incredible. I mean, it's just amazing to see how many programs are supported through the work that your office does. And congratulations on your audits. That's anyone who's been through an audit knows how intense those can be. So congratulations on the findings or lack thereof findings, but way to go. That's very impressive. And thanks for all that you do to keep CAAB moving forward and all the support you provide us with our meetings and our task force. We really appreciate all that you do. Any other thoughts or comments, questions before we move on to open forum? All right, so now we will open the floor to anyone that would like to ask questions or share information. That includes anyone that's here as a guest. I see a hand raised from Joyce, so go ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. I'd like to know why or what the reason is that the deaf community needs to be served better. Is there no liaison for them, or I'm just curious as to why the services have not continued at a level that before, I'm assuming, that was acceptable. And the second one is when Rebecca did the training with me earlier, I was reading through the materials, and one of the responses from questionnaire that was sent out to the community, that they didn't know where to go or what to, who they could contact. And I think Rebecca told me that there were posters that they could call 211. And I'm wondering, is there posters, and can they be put out in the schools, post offices, libraries, more out into the community?
Hi, Joyce. Can you hear me okay? I am going to try to answer your question. Regarding the assumption that the deaf community had been getting acceptable levels of services, that might be acceptable to following standards created by legislature or by agencies or by the county or the cities. By the deaf community, it's never been acceptable. We've had a lot of issues. I mean, I do presentations about this, and I usually target who the group is. I'm going to be talking to somebody after this meeting is over regarding problems with governance. But in general, when I'm speaking to people who in the past or currently have mental health problems, drug addictions, are homeless, are in poverty, on SSI, don't have transportation, don't have housing, don't qualify for Section 8. No, they don't get several different things covered. For one thing, I've been told that one particular agency that is providing help for housing, I will decide whether or not I will out who they are, that they often don't have somebody there to provide interpreting. So there's somebody there that's a CODA, child of deaf adult, that knows sign language, and they'll use them. While that agency thinks it's equivalent or equitable, I've been talking to some deaf people that said they didn't understand the person. And so that's an issue. I use interpreters myself. I'm hard of hearing deaf. So that means I can hear, I can talk, but I also am deaf, and I'm part of deaf culture. And not all interpreters are alike, and not all deaf people sign alike. We're not all the same. And we do not have a written language. And like I said, a lot of deaf people cannot read English fluently. Also, like a lot of people are in general, they don't always want to tell you that they don't understand you. I worked in DC with asylum seekers from other countries, and I recognized the same facial expressions and body language when people would use these huge words and it went right over their heads. They didn't want to say that, they didn't want to look dumb. And they just were like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'll sign the contract and look good so I don't get in trouble. There are cultural differences in the deaf community, how we do things than hearing ways. And a lot of people simply don't know that. I'm not asked by a lot of people to do presentations. A lot of other deaf people have expressed to me their issues, and I try to express to other people. I get a lot of times pushback for saying something. So I really appreciate that you actually were listening and cared enough to ask me a question about this. How you can get it to satisfactory levels would be, we would have to do things the deaf way, just like you would do for Native Americans. You would go to them and their people and do it their way. Instead of saying deaf people should come and figure it out when they get here. Hopefully they've got accommodations. I'll give you one example because it's part of deaf culture. We give examples and we had a little extra time, so I will give you an example for clarification. I talked to people from, I think it's called ESD 112, and we had a conversation about the deaf community and youth and preventing people from becoming addicted to drugs as youth. And they're saying they're really excited about getting youth to create presentations and skits and stuff, whatever works for their generation, because having us adults do it, no matter how smart we are, it will not appeal to that generation. Totally get that. And I asked him, do you go to WSD, the deaf school, and include them? He never thought about it. And then I said, deaf people have a different culture. If you have a hearing group of youth and they create a skit and a presentation and it's about drug prevention, and you say, well, I'll just get an interpreter for that, it won't work because we have a different culture. the examples that we would use to make it clear that this is what drugs do, this is what you should do to inform people, this is what the symptoms look like, and anything like that has to be done the deaf cultural way, or it's just going to be like, who cares? It's not going to get to them. When we talk to people about shelters and stuff, a lot of deaf people aren't going to feel safe or included in what happens in a shelter. When we talk about housing, the Council for the Homeless asks a whole long list of questions very quickly. How do we know that the deaf person has time to comprehend what's being said through the interpreter and get the answers correct? I know of a deaf blind person that was turned down as not vulnerable. Luckily, that got fixed because I think the interpreter had made a mistake in how they explained it. And the deaf blind person didn't really understand what was happening. So I hope that made it clear what I'm talking about, what I meant. Good?
Okay, so a couple of my questions would be, so you're saying that the deaf community doesn't really know where to go to get help in the first place? The translators are not necessarily up to speed on certain aspects of the deaf community culture and their language. And you're thinking that you need some kind of liaison through the community or CAAB or somebody that is available that can help. How do you resolve this issue?
That last one is the big question. How do we resolve the issue? Because it's not just the CAAB and like the point in time count, for example. We're talking about a culture that's been oppressed, and Alexander Graham Bell published a eugenics paper upon the formation of deaf variety of human race to try to exterminate my people, and did pretty well about like not funding deaf schools at Sign, in trying to make sure they're all mainstreamed so they're isolated, hopefully wouldn't get married. And they even discussed banning marriage of deaf people. So we have a huge multi-layer system of oppression, both covert and overt, legal and just by ignorance, that has happened to the deaf community since the time that that paper was published in the Milan Conference of 1880, when they decided worldwide that they were going to stop deaf people from using sign language. Sign language is actually banned. So we still don't have it where a child of deaf adult whose first language is American Sign Language is allowed as an adult to say, you know, this is a really hard meeting I'm going to be in. I want to request an ASL interpreter. They say, no, it's just for the disabled. But it's not, it's a real language. And so if we have language that's not even recognized, and we don't provide anything from the state or the county or the city of equity to the deaf community, including we're doing things for other countries that their people move here and people that have other languages here, but we're neglecting American Sign Language. And American Sign Language isn't even the only sign language. There's many sign languages. We can have immigrants here that use BSL. That's nothing like ASL. And they use a completely different interpreter. So that last question really is the question. I don't have like a 1 second answer of this is how we resolve this problem, because this is a thing where I would need people like you and people with authority to come together with me and come with other deaf people, not just me. So I'm not the only deaf representative. So we could have a real discussion about.
Okay, so I really appreciate this information.
Sure.
So there is a long-term process that's going to have to take place within the Society of America for the deaf community. What I'm wondering is, what is a short-term solution so the deaf community in Clark County can get the help they need?
I'm wondering if we should have you two connect offline in the interest of time, just because the open forum is really up to 3 minutes. And I know we're a little behind or early in schedule, but would you mind having this conversation? Because it sounds like there's a lot to talk about, really dynamic points of conversation. Would that be all right if you guys connected outside of this meeting?
That would be fine.
Talk with her later, or any of you or anybody else that
Sorry, there's lots of echo.
to watch contact with me. To make it really short though, what I think we would need to do is just have people to come together and discuss things out.
Okay, so my second question was the posters for the 211 calls.
Yeah, so if you're interested in posting or having them posted for your school district, I can get you in connection with 211. There's business card size, there's small, there's placards, there's big posters. They have a variety of materials in a variety of different languages, and I can connect you with the person, and they can either drop them off or mail them out to you.
Okay. And are they up in the libraries and the post offices?
Yes, so our Clark County representative with 211 Info visits a myriad of community meetings and provides those materials. So they should be available in the libraries. We mandate that they're available in all of our programs that we fund. It's actually part of their contract that they have to have that posted in a visible area. So I know a lot of our programs are, and then yes, 211 is always looking to update and get the information out there in new places, but they do visit and go to many community meetings to share those materials to get them out.
All right, any other questions before we wrap up? Comments? All right, well, thank you so much. I appreciate your patience with me as I learn these new skills. I've been a part of the meetings obviously for multiple years, but it's different being in the driver's seat and taking the lead. So thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you for all the presenters and people that shared today. Your time is valued and appreciated, and we'll give a little bit of it back to you today. So we will meet again tomorrow at 9 a.m. The meeting link is on the agenda that was sent out, so refer back to that. And we will see you first thing tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.